Hello, everyone. It's not a real recording until your voice finally screws up. My name is Mr. Big T Anderson. This is the fanfiction reading. I'm going to get a slight drink one moment. There we go. Much better. Anyway, this is for A Step Back in the Shadows. I'm going to try and pronounce this one. To the author, I'm sorry if I botch this. Falneou17? Anyway, links down below, author's page as well as the fanfiction page. If you're new here, let me explain. I do fanfiction reading. I go around each month, I look at different fandoms, and I try to find some good examples of fanfiction. Maybe some that need a little bit more polish, maybe some that do something very well. And in this case, this don't need much polish. You're going to see that, but you'll get that. Anyway, I pick ones that, for various reasons, should be read for good things. Maybe, for the new writers, for old. In any case, this month we're doing Pokemon and Digimon. Unique set of challenges, finding fanfics for that. Maybe I'll talk about that one later. But this... I found that most of the stories that are done well often involve a little bit more reality or involve a little snippet of life, or they add to the character. And as you'll see in this fic, I think that this definitely hits the check marks and does it in a very good way. Now, did I go over everything? Let's see. Falneou17. Links down below. What are we waiting for? Let me start reading. This is A Step Back in the Shadows. Several days had already passed, but it still felt so surreal for the blue-haired boy. Almost like it was all just a part of a really long dream. Or, he frowned as he was waking up, a nightmare. As the moonlight entered the room through the small split in the curtains, Ken sat up straight in his bed and let the covers fall off his chest. With his messy hair slightly obscuring his vision, the 11-year-old grasped around blindly when it hit something hard to his left. Now fully awake, and holding his hand in an effort to comfort the throbbing pain, Ken slid out of bed to see what he had hit. On the ground lay an open chest that had its contents spilling out. Narrowing his eyes, he recognized a little blue teddy bear, a dark blue toy caravan, several old but still intact bubble blowers, and several drawings that had completely been forgotten about. Picking up one of the scattered drawings, Ken's eyes widened. What he saw was on the sheet. And letting it slip through his fingers, the blue-haired boy stumbled back and tripped over the blue teddy bear. Landing painfully on his back, he slowly pulled his knees under his chin and muttered a single word. The next thing that Ken's brain processed was a sudden rush of hot and dry air hitting his exposed face. Opening his eyes, the young male found himself in a place he felt he had been before, but wasn't completely sure whether or not that was the case. Shaking the sand out of his hair with his hands, he tried to take a step forward, but felt something hold him back. Looking down, he was surprised to see that metal shackles were restraining him. What's even more surprising to him was the fact that he didn't recognize the shape of those legs at all. Since when were his legs a light purple color and that hairy? Keep moving! A loud, angry command, followed by a crack, sent a wave of pain throughout his body. Clutching his right shoulder with his left hand, he tried his best to turn around as much as possible to see who was behind him. If he was shocked before by his new appearance, he was even more so now that he was seeing this. Behind him stood a male with long, spiky hair of varying shades of blue, covering his eyes with a pair of yellow sunglasses with purple lenses. The male wore a blue, gray, and white jumpsuit, black shoes, cuffs on his wrists and ankles, and a blue cape with yellow lining. The Digimon Emperor. Beyond the simple fact that he was shocked to see himself... No, that couldn't be him. Could it? What did I just say? Keep moving! The man shouted as he cracked his whip again, sending yet another wave of searing pain through Ken's body. And as Ken tried to cover his body in a desperate attempt to protect it from the hailstorm of blows, he noticed something. He couldn't feel more than anything how all the Digimon around him were scurrying around nervously while avoiding him, even though he was suffering right in front of them. Why weren't they helping him? A well-placed strike struck him on the back of the head, and his vision grew dark instantly. The next thing that Ken was sure of was the strong winds blowing from the opposite side of where he was coming from. It was pleasant, but it felt so different to him at the same time as well. A stream of white-hot flames hit him on the lower right side of the face, catching him off guard and sending a new wave of pain through his body. The pain was unlike any he had felt before, and he cringed inwards to try and move away from it all. Ken tried to look up to see who had hurt him, but he realized very quickly that something was wrong. His vision was greatly impaired. Everything around him was in a shade of red, and much to his surprise, he could barely see even a little bit in front of him. Even so, he was sure that he recognized the figure in front of him. How could he not? They had known each other for as long as Ken could remember. Brother! Ken tried to call out, but his eyes widened in shock when the next stream of fire came his way from his brother's direction. And he barely managed to avoid it. Ken, thrusting his body to the left, winced as he heard the ominous crunching sound from below. Clutching his left foot in a grimace, Ken fell on his knees in pain. It allowed him to see his brother face to face for the first time since forever. And Ken barely managed to hide a gasp. Sam's face was determined, but the younger brother could see the sadness and pain mixed in there as well. Almost as if he was hesitant. Before Ken could think of a reason to explain this thought to himself, he felt a strong surge of electricity strike his body and knocking him out cold. When he next came to, he found himself on his knees in the sand, not knowing where he was and only wishing that the nightmare would end already. Ken. Ken! Upon hearing his name being called, Ken looked up, but regretted doing so almost immediately. He knew that he actually recognized the voices this time. So he thought he was ready for what was in front of him. Even so, nothing could have prepared him to see that his parents were tied and suspended above the head of a very familiar Digimon. No. Ken breathed out as he slumped to the ground. I see that you're finally awake. Jolting his head in the direction the voice came from, Ken frowned when he didn't recognize the figure standing there. The person was most certainly a boy, not likely to be a lot older than Ken was then. He was wearing a crimson jacket with azure-colored flame pattern on the bottom, over a faded orange shirt, blue pants, and dark boots. What? Ken muttered, and the other boy raised an eyebrow, silently prompting the blue-haired boy to continue. After taking a deep breath to calm his nerves, he finally did. What are you doing to my parents? Let them go! Oh, now where is the fun in any of that? You know, I have a better idea. The mysterious male trailed off, smirking as he slowly walked into the direction of the suspended adult. As you can see, there's only one mouth that I have to feed, but I have 2 meals. I can't afford him getting a stomachache from eating too much, so I will only give him 1. Choose which one of the 2 meals you want to keep. What? Ken exclaimed in horror as he turned from the male in front of him to his parents that were squirming heavily in a desperate attempt to free themselves. It didn't take long for them to make up his mind. He couldn't. Ken knew that he couldn't choose one parent over the other. He couldn't. They were both very important to him in their own way. He just couldn't. How was he ever supposed to sacrifice one for the other? Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick. Oh. Time's up. But I see that you haven't picked anything yet. Huh. Now what should we do? Ken looked up to see the diabolical smile on his face, and seeing it caused a shiver to run down his spine. Oh, but what do you know? There's another one. You should be thankful, kid. You don't have to choose either one of them anymore. No! Ken screamed, turning to his parents to see that, true to the other male's words, another one of those creatures had appeared, and much to Ken's horror, both Digimon were already positioned right below his parents, with their mouths agape. Before Ken knew what he was doing, he had made a wild dash towards his parents. He didn't know what he was thinking he could do, but he also knew he had to do something. He didn't get very far, however. Not even 3 steps in, Ken felt the ground below him collapse and a hole formed around him. There wasn't anything that he could do as he fell into it. There wasn't anything that he could do to save his parents. Did I? Really? Ken muttered to himself, pulling his knees closer to him before burying his face in them. He somehow forgot all about it, but now he finally remembered everything. Ken remembered all the Digimon he had enslaved and pushed beyond their limits. Ken remembered how he had made friends and family fight each other for their freedom. Ken remembered toying around with the lives of Digimon and humans alike without a care in the world. Ken remembered all the things that he had done as the Digimon Emperor. What have I done? Ken cried, his breath hitching as he dug his nails into the fabric. Suddenly feeling something brush against his foot, Ken looked up with red-rimmed eyes to see the drawing he was holding earlier. Only this time he was able to clearly see what the picture was showing. Depicted on the sheet of paper was a bipedal insect-like creature with long stingers on either of its front arms and a set of hardened white wings on its back. Ken's eyes widened when he noticed this. Those colors, those features, even though they weren't like he remembered them to be, he instantly recognized as an old friend of his. It was only then that Ken finally realized something else that was wrong. He knew that he didn't have a lot of friends growing up, but somehow there was always somebody by his side. Someone who was always supporting him, never turning their back towards him despite how cruel Ken was in the past. Wormmon. Ken almost yelled in recognition, looking around his room for any signs of his partner. The little guy was always there for him, so he would be there for him again, right? But Ken couldn't find him. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find a trace of Wormmon. The only thing that came anywhere near to his friend's presence was the object lying on Ken's table. Curiously and without thinking, almost as if some divine power guided him towards it, Ken made his way. And once there, he gingerly picked it up and looked at it in the poor lighting of his room. It was his D3 Digivice. Before Ken knew what was going on, streams of images flashed through his mind's eye, reminding him of the last time when he was in the digital world. It showed him and his Chimeramon, his final battle against the Digidestined, and most importantly, how the battle ended. This reminded him what happened to Wormmon. Wormmon, I'm sorry, Ken muttered whilst biting his lip, his vision getting blurry again as his grip on the Digivice tightened. But now it is my turn to save you. Wait for me. Before Ken knew what he was doing, he had raised his hand towards the computer screen and got engulfed in a bright flash of light. And that was a step back in the shadows. Now, I'm going to try pronouncing this again. Falneou17. I'm sorry if I did that badly. But the enemies, obviously, there was the Digimon Emperor. And for those who don't know, it was a lot of the, you saw the plucky kids, and then you saw this kind of child who did not belong and who was so cruel and cold. And you got a very odd kind of feeling. I thought he was a pretty good villain. And I thought he was actually just a good character overall. I thought it was well done. I mean, they had their cheesy moments at times, but cheesy moments sometimes are just fine. And I think the author here does very well at how some of these actions would impact you later, especially if you're too young to know what they are. So that's why I like this one. If you liked it, links down below to the author and to the story page. Please give them a like, give them a review. Otherwise, they don't know what they're doing right. Once again, this has been the fanfiction reading. I appreciate it if you liked how I did it. Leave a comment down below. I love talking to you guys. Thank you for listening, and ta-ta for now.